No nation stands by pride alone, nor glory's lifted hand, but service, law, and memory bind the people to the land. True patriots will walk the land through shadow and through light, to guard its living beauty well, its strength, its law, its right. No hymn is true that skips the graves where broken vows were laid. No flag is fully seen until it casts both light and shade. So when we see the fire dim and threaten to grow cold, we ask what love must keep within, for all the land to hold. Before the flag had claimed the sky, a hearth fire lit the shore, where timber, prayer, and chartered words made strangers something more. A person found a public face in meeting house and town. The town received those living hands and wrote their duties down. The old world crossed in books of law, in psalm, in name, in slave, yet taught the newborn settlements what memory could save. For order was no empty scroll, no crown of dust alone. It breathed because united people laid the cornerstone. At dawn, the household broke its bread, then sent children to learn, while fields and forges fed the street and lamps began to burn. The cabin gave the body life, the common road gave trade, and public peace returned the gift the private labor made. A fence could guard a little plot, a law could guard the field, a hand could raise a roof at noon, a town could raise a shield. So hearth and court and market square were fastened into one, for none could finish privately what all had just begun. On Sabbath bells and court days too, the village gathered near to weigh the debt of borrowed soil and name the common fear. Each voice was small, yet through the vote a larger voice was heard, and private reason learned to walk inside a public word. The citizen was not complete by dwelling on the land, but learned by serving, judging, bearing office in his hand. The town trained speech, and speech trained law, and law trained will to see that liberty needs practiced souls, not wishes to be free. The graveyard held the family names, the harbor held return, and winter tales at firesides kept the absent years to burn. For homeland was not merely earth, nor roof, nor river bend, but memory calling kinship back, and kinship calling end. A sailor dreamed of home at sea, a widow watched the lane, a son returned to father's tools through weather, debt, and pain. Remembered life gave kin its claim, and kin made longing true. Return became the gathered self that found its name anew. But under beams of ordered rooms, another shadow stayed, where stolen labor bore the wealth that public virtue made. The city praised its liberty while chains were locked from sight, and judgment stood outside the feast, demanding equal light. Along old paths, the native towns saw treaty lines advance, as maps enlarged their hungry names and called the takings grants. When neighbor's love forgets the small, its hearth becomes a wall, and duty dies when human worth is counted not at all. The charter taught a legal tongue, the courts a patient art, and benefits of ordered peace laid claims upon the heart. Yet law that forms the citizen must answer when it binds, for consent is not the silence left in overmastered minds. A stamp might seem a little mark, a tax a minor fee, till neighbors heard in royal ink a threat to being free. Then law, once loved as common roof, was questioned at the door, for what had formed the citizen now made him less, not more. At tavern board and county court, the loyalties now strained, between the king who claimed the law and rights the law contained. The person leaned toward public truth, the town toward chosen voice, and older orders tested peace by asking for a choice. So belonging was no lullaby, no flag yet in the sun, but persons, homes, and handed laws converging into one. The people learned to love a place enough to think and weigh, if order gave them stable roots or stole their soul away. Before July became a flame, before the bells were thrown, the seed of country lived where neighbors made the common known. A household needed town and law, the law its living hands, and memory called judgment down to cleanse the promised lands. Thus patriots arose not loud, but bound and interlaced, in bread and blood, court and road, in duties shared and faced. Not yet the nation's thunder cry, not yet the starry dome, but love that finds through ordered life the meaning of a home. Empires raged in thunder, fighting continental wars, as colonies kept watchful eyes on their Atlantic shores. They fought beneath a British crown and learned a British name, yet endless conflicts left the question, what did kinship claim? The chartered towns had grown in law, in courthouse, vote and trade, and under English liberties their public souls were made. So when the crown reached out for gold without the people's voice, the charter's children faced the law and found they had a choice. A stamp was laid on paper sheets where wills and pleadings ran, on contracts, news and licenses that shaped the public man. The mark seemed small, but through its ink a larger wound was shown, for law that forms a citizen must make consent its throne. In taverns lit by tallow smoke, the farmers left their fields, while printers raised the written word as unyielding shields. A tax became a mirror then, where every town could see that benefit had bound them once, but bondage was not free. The merchant closed his ledger book, the matron spun her thread, the preacher named a public sin, the pamphlet quickly spread. Each private act became a chord in one resisting sound, for civic debt must answer truth when law itself is bound. Thus person, town, and old estate were braided under strain, as allegiance to inheritance made loyalty complain. The city owed its people law, the people owed it care, but neither debt could sanctify a power deaf to prayer. In Boston's streets the winter pressed against a nervous line, where soldiers bore the king's cold steel, and boys threw words like brine. Then blood fell dark on frozen stones, and every witness saw how order, when it fears the judged, can murder under law. Yet rage alone could not suffice, nor grief become a guide, for passion loves a sudden flame and burns the truth beside. The faithful gathered testimony, names and measured breath, that judgment might remain a lamp beside the facts of death. The tea lay packed in harbor ships, the moon above it pale, while masked men moved through salted dark and opened chest and bale. They cast the taxed leaves to the tide, but not for loot or gain. A symbol met a symbol there, and answered chain with bane. Then punishment came down like frost, the harbor locked and still, a city made to starve until it bowed to royal will. But when one town was choked for all, the scattered towns grew near, and kinship crossed the border lines through hunger, wrath, and fear. From farm and port and courthouse room, the delegates were sent to turn 1,000 local griefs toward common argument. They did not start by hating kings, nor worshipping the crowd, but asked if lawful liberty could speak its claim aloud. They petitioned first with careful hands, still calling George their own, for gratitude remembers roots before it breaks the stone. Yet when the throne refused the plea and answered right with might, the bond that benefit had formed was judged by higher light. At Lexington, the morning broke with rumor, hoof, and bell, and ordinary neighbors stood where redcoat columns fell. No poem can command the shot, nor wholly name its birth, but brothers woke in musket smoke and stepped upon the earth. At Concord's Bridge, The river heard a farmer's breath grow brave, as public law, no longer safe, asked private lives to save. The citizen became the shield, the town became the cause, and sacrifice began to write the grammar of new laws. Still, conscience trembled in the ranks, for kin stood kin against, and ardent hearts on either side felt loyalty's expense. A father blessed the king at dusk, a son knew nation's flame, and patriots now learned through grief that love may split a name. Then summer gathered delegates beneath a burdened sun, where argument and providence and danger worked as one. The room was hot with mortal risk, yet cooler judgment stayed, for liberty must reason well before its vow is made. They named the truths they held as clear, not granted by a throne, that human worth precedes the state and cannot be outgrown. If governments betray that trust and make oppression law, the people may resume the fight that spirit held in awe. Thus justice made the Commonwealth more than a crowd in rage, as common care made liberty endure beyond the page. For freedom severed from the good becomes a selfish cry, but liberty with trust in law lifts people toward the sky. The city forms the citizen through custom, court, and land, but truth may judge the nation should it harden to command. The soul must not be sold for peace, nor conscience made to kneel, when civil power wounds the right it once was sworn to seal. Bells rang out, but not because all history was clean, nor because they heeded all the pledge would come to mean. The Declaration lit a torch whose flame would judge the night, and every future patriot must answer to its light. Here rose the promise of consent, severe and newly born, not hatred of the parent root, but pruning of the thorn. A people claimed their public home by risking name and breath, and pledged their lives to prove that right was stronger yet than death. The war had crossed its winter fields and spent its iron flame, yet victory still had to choose what peace would dare to name. The general gave his sword away before the civil hand, and service learned restraint must guard the freedom of the land. The soldier turned toward home again, the plough, the shop, the door, while graves behind the young republic asked the living more. Sacrifice preserves the dream if law itself can rise, and honor those who paid its cost beneath unfinished skies. The states were tied by paper threads that frayed beneath the strain, as debt and want and restless farms made liberty complain. When Shay's men stood their cause with arms where courts and hunger meet, the country saw that freedom needs an order it can seat. In heat of Philadelphia, the delegates took care to balance fears of kingly rule against the mob's despair. Deliberation trained the will, and judgment shaped the frame, for citizens must shape the law before they'll praise its name. They gave the branches separate hands, lest power close as one, and set checks upon ambition to ensure its work was done. The city's order shapes the soul renews the state, and justice stands between them both to measure every fate. Then rights were written like a fence around the inward breath, where conscience, speech, and worship live beyond the ruler's death. The person needs the commonwealth, yet must not disappear, for public good turns tyrant when the soul is ruled by fear. But parties rose like summer storms and darkened public sight, each side declaring only it the guardian of right. When faction feeds on private gain, the common good grows thin. Patriotic words a mask to hide the faction's sin. George Washington, with warning voice, looked past his laureled day and begged the nation not to sell its whole to partial sway. Belonging needs a judging heart, and virtue needs a rein, or love of country shrinks to love of party, pride, and gain. Then came a test more quiet still than cannon, fire or flood, when rivals passed the nation's helm without revenge or blood. The ballot taught the sword to sleep, the loser to withdraw, and liberty took root inside obedience to law. In 1812, the young republic heard thunder from the sea and watched its capital aflame beneath impiety. But Baltimore, through smoke and night, kept vigil toward the dawn, and memory found a flag still there when terror had withdrawn. The banner gathered kinship then, the dead, the spared, the brave, and made return a public dream the threatened people gave. Yet symbols must be judged by truth, not worshipped in the air, for cloth can gather memory or cover wrong with glare. The map unrolled beyond the hills, the wagons pressed ahead, while older nations watched the lines approach with quiet dread. A household loved its field and fire, its child, its plough, its span. But local duty fails when it forgets the fellow man. The road of tears through winter mud made destiny look bare, as treaty, troop, and hunger moved whole peoples from their prayer. A country cannot call land blessed by merely taking ground, for universal reason hears dispossession's sound. Then conquest rode through southern dust beneath expanding skies, and glory spoke in trumpet notes, while conscience answered lies. When domination wears the flag and calls itself increase, the patriot's task is not to cheer, but question power's peace. The press of conscience beat the drum like hammers through the night, and abolition's printed fire refused to flatter blight. If law protects a chain and calls the captive body owed, then truth must judge the courthouse steps and block the legal road. By hidden paths and lantern signs, the hunted crossed the gloom, and strangers risked their homes to shield the fugitives from doom. Memory called to kinship there, and kinship called return, where personhood, denied by law, made freedom's North Star burn. Then Douglas faced the festal day, the banners and the cry, and asked what freedom's birthday meant beneath a bondman's sky. He held the Declaration up against the nation's face. That judgment might restore the word hypocrisy made base. The house divided could not stand. The arguments grew flame, and Sumter's smoke declared that law and bondage could not claim. The Union was no parchment ghost, no song of border lines, but a battlefield twixt justice and power's own designs. The farmer left his autumn field, the clerk his ledger page, the mother folded letters down and learned the cost of age. Sacrifice again took form in bodies, breath, and bone, yet blood demanded freedom more than victory alone. Emancipation entered the war and changed the nation's aim, no longer only union's bond, but freedom's larger claim. The city must be born again, the soul must be made new, and law must name the captive man a citizen in view. At Gettysburg the graves were still, but Lincoln heard them plead that living hands must finish what was consecrated seed. The dead gave law a deeper debt than triumph could repay. A new birth under liberty must answer where they lay. Then amendments struck the ancient chain from Constitution's page, and citizenship was written through the wounds of war and rage. Justice made the Commonwealth enlarge its guarded door, while liberty became a right the state must answer for. A freedman raised his ballot hand, a schoolhouse lit the clay, a mother wrote her child's name onto the coming day. Belief and education now strengthened one another, as public virtue learned to call the former slave a brother. But riders crossed the midnight roads with terror under hood, and faction tried to drown the law in fear and private blood. Reconstruction's promise lived, though power made retreat, a buried seed of equal right beneath the nation's feet. So patriotism passed through fire, through founding, fault and scar, and learn the fourth must hear the graves as well as every star. The country lives when love can serve, correct and still remain, to build from broken promises a truer public plain. After Reconstruction's battered dawn, the promise caught its breath, while terror stalked the southern roads and bartered right with death. The parchment held a larger we within its wounded laws, but citizens must keep alive what courts alone might pause. The schoolhouse lamp, the church bells ring, the ballot's guarded door became small forts of public hope along a threatened shore. For justice written into law must also enter hands, or liberty lies sleeping while oppression rules the lands. The railroads stitched the continent with iron, smoke, and speed, and cities swelled with factory strife, ambition, need, and greed. The household sought its bread and rest beneath the whistle's call, but private strength alone could not secure the good for all. In tenements where many tongues rose through the evening heat, strangers learned the nation's songs on the rough and crowded street. The country worthy of its name makes immigrants its own, for commonwealth grows richer when the foreign seed is sown. Yet fear could raise a native wall and call exclusion wise, could measure worth by accent, faith, or shape of hair and eyes. Local love becomes untrue when widened hearts are banned, for reason asks one human law across the changing land. The miner faced the company gate, the seamstress bent her head. The child on the clattering loom earned pennies, dust, and bread. If cities are to flourish, not breed hunger dressed as fate, then labor's cry becomes a charge laid at the public gate. The picket line, the ballot box, the sermon, press, and street led all the private ails and harms to find a public beat. The citizen, through common speech, made hidden burdens plain, and deliberation turned the wound toward law's restraining chain. Then women read the founding words and asked their rightful share, in halls where public judgment stirred like thunder in the air. If power is to have a soul and liberty a name, a voiceless half indicts the whole and sets the text aflame. They marched through jeers and prison bars, through hunger, cold, and blame, yet kept correction bound to love and service bound to claim. The Republic learned its people must transcend tradition's wall, and justice widened citizenship by answering their call. Beyond the shores, the bugles blew beneath a rising sun, and victory over lesser lands asked what peace was won. The flag could speak of liberty to islands far away, or turn from sign to appetite and make the weaker pay. So conscience stood beside the drum and questioned glory's throne. Can freedom be a gift imposed by force from zone to zone? Universal reason judged the nation's outward hand, for no republic shares its soul by ruling stolen land. Then Europe burned, and Wilson spoke of rights beyond the sea, of peoples, peace, and ordered hopes that war might leave more free. The vision crossed the ocean then, but came with shadows cast, as dissenters felt the prison door and mobs avenged the past. The soldier wore the uniform, the worker forged the shell, and the mother counted rationed days and prayed that sons lived well. Sacrifice can guard the law when law remains its guide, but fear can wound the commonwealth when conscience is denied. When war was done, the parades marched home through cheering, dust, and rain, yet black men in their uniforms met insult, threat, and chain. A nation cannot preach the rights of peoples over foam, while citizens who fought for it are hunted down at home. The market roared through glittering years, then cracked beneath its gold, and banks like hollow towers fell, while breadlines filled the cold. The household, stripped by hunger's hand, looked outward toward the state, and asked what common good must do when private hopes abate. From radios by evening lamps, a calmer courage came, not promising a painless road, but giving fear a name. The road, the dam, the school, the park, the workman's lifted spade, made public care a new scene art where dignity was made. The question was not state alone, nor lonely self-made lord, but how the city serves the life its people may move toward. Each person needs the whole, yet must not be erased, and power must feed freedom, not command the human face. Across the dust, where farmsteads failed and migrant children cried, the nation saw its plenty judged by those left bare beside. Flourishing became a civic word, not luxury or charm, when hunger crossed the family gate and leaned upon the arm. Then midnight fell on Europe's heart, and tyrants raised the flame while camps and conquest taught the world the cost of worshipped name. The Republic heard a larger call beyond its guarded shore, to defend the human image against domination's roar. At Pearl Harbor, smoke arose and grief became command, as sailors burned beneath the flag and shock ran through the land. Memory gathered kinship close, and kinship answered go, while sacrifice became the price where darkened waters glow. In factories bright with rivet sparks, new hands assumed the load, and women built the wings of war beside the humming road. The city found its strength again through those once held apart, for public need revealed the worth long hidden in the heart. Black soldiers crossed the seas to fight the tyrant's iron lie, while segregated barracks asked what freedom meant nearby. They raised a double victory, abroad against the night, at home against the ancient wrong that still denied their right. Yet those of Japanese descent were taken from the coast by fear that made suspicion law and turned blame into boast. The pressure for security wounds the country it would save, for patriots know justice is what makes them truly brave. At Normandy, the morning broke through surf and steel and cries, and ordinary bodies bore a world's hope toward the skies. The vision was not perfect, yet it stood against the grave, that law and human dignity were worth the lives they gave. When camps were opened, silence saw what hatred's logic made, and victory lost its innocence before the murdered shade. Humanity became the judge of every flag unfurled, for local love must answer to the conscience of the world. The bomb's great thunder faded out across the far sea's foam, and future threats cast shadows over soldiers' dreams of home. America preserved its flame in name of freedom's claim, yet learned that noble vision faces judgment just the same. So peace meant more than keeping fast to borders, songs, and stone. It meant a wider promise till the stranger stood as known. And sharing meant not conquest, pride, or the lifted rod, but service shaped by providence, the nation under God. The soldiers crossed the ocean home with medals, wounds, and names, while victory's bright windows held the ash of distant flames. The world had seen what hatred builds when countries worship might, and conscience asked the nation how to keep its freedom right. The courthouse, school, and voting booth became the testing ground, where promises of founding ink met those who'd been pushed down. A flag that flew for liberty beyond the foreign sea was summoned home by citizens struggling to be free. In Montgomery, the evening bus moved slowly through the town, and Rosa Parks kept her seat while rules said to move down. Tired will met common strength, and common strength fought law, for agency and gathered hearts can show the world its flaw. At counters, bridges, jailhouse doors, the singers faced the blow, and answered rage with discipline, the watching land would know. Correction wore a servant's face, restraint a steady flame, and love of country learned to speak by calling wrong by name. Martin Luther King stood on the marble steps, speaking of a dream, and the nation heard its founding words once more, with new esteem. Belonging stood with judgment there, and virtue joined the plea that we the people must include the people still unfree. Yet fear could dress in loyal clothes and whisper through the street, could mark dissent as treasonous and justice as defeat. Whenever faction claims the flag and bids the soul be still, the patriot must shun the chain that bends the public will. Then jungles burned across the news, and draft cards marked the young, while mothers read the casualties and protest songs were sung. The soldier's grief, the marcher's cry, the veteran's haunted face, all asked if love of country must give every order grace. Obedience without judgment makes servile shadows grow, and judgment without service turns too cold to heal the woe. Restraint must hold them both in hand when drums and doubts increase, that courage may defend the truth as deeply as the peace. The papers broke the hidden seal, the cameras found the stain, and Watergate made power stand beneath the law again. No ruler is republic's soul, no office owns the land, when justice calls the highest seat to answer at the stand. The 200th summer came with banners lifted in the air, but fireworks lit questions too, not innocence laid bare. Birthdays after scandal learn a sober kind of praise, that liberty survives by laws which outlast passing days. The Cold War cast its longer shade across the public mind, with rockets, walls, and rival dreams dividing humankind. A country guarding freedom must beware the fear it keeps, for fear can watch the outer gate while inward freedom sleeps. Twin towers fell to terror's shock, and ash became a cloud, while strangers carried strangers down, and grief cried out aloud. Memory gathered kinship close around the names in dust, and sacrifice returned again through service, love, and trust. But sorrow, if it hardens, may mistake revenge for right, and make the wounded city harm the innocent in fright. True duty needs to serve a world where human worth remains, or sorrow may become the salt that justifies new chains. The veteran, nurse, and teacher stand where public burdens meet, and the neighbors clear the storm-felled branch from someone else's street. A country is not only saved by speeches, wars, or laws, but daily by the hands that serve a quiet common cause. The immigrant repeats the oath with hope inside the tongue, and the child learns the songs whose oldest words are yet made young. The grave, the school, the courthouse step, the kitchen lit at night, all ask what kind of future dawn will hence dispel the night. Now monuments and memories contend in public squares, as some defend the ancient names and some demand repairs. Ancestry can teach us debt, but nostalgia clouds the view, for he who sells a polished past denies what brought us through. So let the dead be honored well, but not by practiced lies, for love that cannot bear the truth makes idols in disguise. The past should be a lantern held where honest mourners tread, not chains to bind the living soul to shadows of the dead. Beneath the rockets of the 4th, deeper questions burn. What do we seek for our own lives at celebration's turn? Not license without neighbor, not comfort sealed in pride, but freedom formed by discipline with conscience at its side. What do we crave for those who share our common air? Not silence under order, not a token public share, but room to speak, labor and learn, to worship, doubt and grow, where justice makes belonging more than something flags can show. And what must we now ask for all, beyond our shore and name? Not empire dressed as mercy, nor dominion crowned with fame, but human worth acknowledged where no anthem is our own, that local love may kneel before a larger moral throne. The person needs a city still, a place to give his heart. The city needs the person's hand to do the civic part. The order of the founders needs remembrance and repair, or roots become a prison and the branches fail the air. The soul must answer justice when the crowd demands its due, and the law must answer conscience when the old wrong claims the new. The nation must be loved enough to strengthen and restrain, to celebrate its beauty without blessing every stain. Patriots awake where three living duties stand: to see the lessons in the past, to serve the common land, and to hold the country dear without enthroning it above. For restraint is not the end of truth, but pride made wise through love. The fireworks now fade, and the folding chairs are gone, but somewhere bells of memory are ringing in the dawn. The fourth remains unfinished, while one promise waits for breath, and freedom asks the living what they honor unto death. So let the citizen arise with gratitude made clear, with judgment strong enough to speak and service drawing near. The nation forms the citizen, yet justice lights the whole, and virtue teaches love of home and saving of the soul.